Have you ever felt trapped in an endless cycle of failures? As if the universe was conspiring against you, closing doors and crushing your dreams one after another? Carl Jung, one of history's greatest psychoanalysts, identified this moment as the precursor to something extraordinary. It's precisely when everything seems to be falling apart that your unconscious is reorganizing the pieces for the greatest comeback of your life. The synchronicities you're experiencing aren't coincidences, they're signs that you're on the verge of a profound transformation. What appears to be your end may just be the beginning of the most powerful journey you've ever experienced. Are you ready to discover why this moment of apparent defeat is actually the gateway to your greatest triumph? The darkest hour comes right before the dawn. This ancient wisdom captures exactly what Jung discovered in his decades of work with people going through major life transitions. When everything seems to be falling apart in your life, it's not random chaos, it's a clear signal that you're on the edge of something transformative. Think about those moments you feel most lost. The job you thought was secure suddenly vanishes. The relationship you invested years in crumbles overnight. The path you were certain would lead to success suddenly ends in a dead end. These aren't just bad luck or unfortunate events, they are cosmic signposts pointing toward your rebirth. Your mind naturally resists change. It clings to comfort and the familiar, even when those things no longer serve your growth. This resistance creates tension, and that tension must break before anything new can emerge. The breakdown you're experiencing is actually a breakthrough in disguise. Jung noticed specific patterns that appear when someone is about to experience their greatest comeback. First, you might feel a strange sense of emptiness or that something is missing, even if your life looks fine on the surface. This emptiness isn't depression, it's your soul creating space for something new to enter. Second, you start noticing unusual coincidences. You think of someone and they call you minutes later. You keep seeing the same number patterns. You randomly encounter information that seems oddly relevant to your situation. Jung called these synchronicities, meaningful coincidences that occur when your unconscious mind is trying to communicate with your conscious awareness. Third, your dreams become more vivid, sometimes even disturbing. Your sleep may be disrupted as your unconscious processes the transformation happening beneath the surface. Pay attention to recurring symbols or themes in these dreams. They contain valuable messages about your path forward. Fourth, you feel drawn to new ideas, people, or activities that would have held little interest for you before. This is your authentic self beginning to emerge, guiding you toward what truly resonates with your core being. Fifth, old habits and behaviors that once defined you suddenly feel empty or meaningless. Activities that used to bring pleasure now feel hollow. This isn't a loss, it's your psyche clearing away what no longer serves you. What makes this period so challenging is that you can see the old life crumbling, but you can't yet clearly see what's coming to replace it. You're in what Jung called the liminal space, the threshold between what was and what will be. This uncertainty triggers primal fear because humans are wired to avoid the unknown. But this fear itself is transformative. When you face it rather than run from it, something remarkable happens. Your comfort zone expands, your capacity for handling life's challenges grows. You develop resilience that will serve you through every future obstacle. The breakdown of your old life isn't happening to you, it's happening for you. Each loss clears space for something more aligned with your true nature. Each disappointment redirects you toward more authentic goals. Each rejection from what isn't meant for you pushes you closer to what is. This period of dissolution serves another crucial purpose. It strips away the false identities you've been carrying, the roles, titles, achievements, and possessions you've used to define yourself begin to fall away, leaving the question, who are you without them? This questioning is sacred ground for discovering your essential nature beyond social conditioning and expectations. Jung believed these periods of darkness were not just personal, they connect us to the collective human experience of death and rebirth that appears. In myths and stories across all cultures, you're living your own hero's journey, facing your own dragons, descending into your own underworld before you can rise again. So if your life is falling apart right now, take heart. The universe isn't punishing you, it's preparing you. Every ending creates space for a new beginning. Every loss clears the way for new gifts. Every moment of darkness is simply the shadow cast by a dawn that's about to break. The comeback doesn't just happen to you, it happens through you as you surrender to this natural process of transformation. The principle of synchronicity, when the universe conspires in your favor. Have you noticed strange coincidences happening more frequently lately? Perhaps you think of someone and they call moments later. Or you keep seeing the same number patterns everywhere. Maybe you randomly open a book to exactly the page containing the answer to a question that's been troubling you. These aren't just random events, they're what Jung calls synchronicities, and they often cluster around periods of major life transformation. Synchronicity represents one of Jung's most fascinating discoveries. It's the principle that explains meaningful coincidences that cannot be explained by cause and effect. These events seem to be connected not by traditional causality but by meaning. They suggest that the universe operates not just through physical laws, but through patterns of significance that link our inner and outer worlds. When you're on the verge of your greatest comeback, these synchronicities often multiply. It's as if the boundary between your mind and the external world becomes more permeable. Your thoughts, feelings, and unconscious needs begin to manifest as external events that guide you forward. Jung discovered this phenomenon through his own experience and the experiences of thousands of his patients. He found that during major life transitions, particularly those involving psychological growth and transformation, report an increase in these meaningful coincidences. It's as if the universe is sending signals, confirming you're on the right path or nudging you in a new direction. What makes synchronicity so powerful is that it connects you to something larger than yourself. It suggests you're part of an interconnected web of meaning, not just an isolated individual navigating a random universe. This realization alone can transform how you experience challenging times. You begin to sense that there's a hidden order to what previously felt like chaos. If you feel ready to dive deeper into your own mind and balance both your light and shadow, explore the SIM method. It's a practical guide that helps you awaken your inner strength in just 5 minutes a day. The link is waiting for you in the first pinned comment. Think about a time when you felt truly lost. Perhaps you lost a job, ended a relationship, or faced another significant disappointment. During such times, your conscious mind often can't see the way forward. But your deeper self, what Jung called the self with a capital, S already knows the direction of your growth. Synchronicities are one way. This deeper wisdom communicates with your conscious awareness. These meaningful coincidences often appear most strongly when your rational mind has exhausted its resources. When you've tried everything you can think of and nothing has worked, you finally surrender control. This surrender creates space for synchronicity to work its magic. Solutions appear from unexpected places. Doors open that you never knew existed. People enter your life carrying exactly the opportunity or insight you need. The key to harnessing synchronicity during your comeback is learning to notice these patterns. Most people miss them because they're trained to focus only on what makes logical sense. But synchronistic events often appear first as subtle whispers, an unusual animal crossing your path, an unexpected book recommendation, a chance meeting that feels strangely significant. When you start paying attention to these whispers, they gradually become louder and more frequent. Another important aspect is developing trust in this process. Your logical mind will try to dismiss synchronicities as mere coincidence, but experiment with following these leads anyway. Act on the intuitive hunch. Attend a random event you feel drawn to. Call the person who keeps coming to mind. Each time you honor these nudges, you strengthen the connection between your conscious mind and the deeper current of meaning flowing through your life. Synchronicity also reveals the power of your attention. What you focus on tends to expand in your awareness. If you're constantly looking for proof that your life is falling apart, you'll find abundant evidence. But if you shift your attention to potential signs of renewal and transformation, those two will multiply. This isn't magical thinking, it's a recognition that your perception shapes your reality. During times of breakdown and breakthrough, synchronicity often appears through dreams as well. Jung found that dreams during major transitions often contain symbols and scenarios that later manifest in waking life. These dreams aren't predicting the future in a way, they're revealing the patterns already unfolding in your unconscious mind that will soon emerge into your conscious experience. As you navigate this period of transformation, treat synchronicities as breadcrumbs leading you toward your authentic path. Each meaningful coincidence is a confirmation that you're not alone in this process. The universe itself seems to respond to your inner journey, providing exactly the resources, insights, and connections you need at precisely the right moment. This isn't because you're specially favored, it's because you're in alignment with how life naturally unfolds when you're in the midst of genuine transformation. Symbolic death. Why you need to lose everything to gain more. There comes a point in every great comeback story where it seems like everything is lost. The hero hits rock bottom. All hope appears gone. In the language of psychology, this is the symbolic death, a necessary phase of transformation that Jung recognized as essential to genuine rebirth. This concept might sound frightening, but understanding it can transform how you experience your darkest moments. Symbolic death doesn't mean physical death, it refers to the dissolution of old identities, beliefs, relationships, and circumstances that no longer serve your growth. It's the necessary ending that precedes every meaningful beginning. Think about the caterpillar entering its chrysalis. Inside that dark space, it doesn't just grow wings, it completely dissolves. Its entire body breaks down into a cellular soup before reorganizing into the butterfly. This biological process perfectly mirrors the psychological transformation Jung described. Before you can become who you're meant to be, parts of who you were must fall away. Our society fears endings. We are taught to cling to stability, to maintain the status quo at all costs. But nature doesn't work this way. In nature, death and rebirth are not opposing forces, they're different aspects of the same continuous cycle. The forest fire that appears destructive actually releases nutrients into the soil and triggers certain seeds to open. The winter that kills the flowers makes way for spring's new growth. When you're experiencing your own symbolic death, it often feels like failure. The career path you invested years in suddenly collapses. The relationship you thought would last forever ends. The identity you carefully constructed no longer fits. Financial security vanishes. Health challenges emerge. Your carefully laid plans fall apart. These experiences hurt tremendously, but they serve a vital purpose. Each loss creates space for something new to enter. Each ending clears the ground for fresh growth. Each disappointment redirects you toward more authentic goals. This process strips away the false and reveals what's true. It removes what's superficial and uncovers what's essential. Jung observed that people often cling desperately to dying situations, fighting the natural process of this resistance only prolongs suffering. The art of transformation involves learning to surrender not in defeat, but in recognition that something within you knows the way forward better than your conscious mind does. This surrender isn't passive. It's an active choice to trust the process of your own unfolding, to let go of controlling the outcome, to remain open to possibilities you couldn't have imagined before everything fell apart. This surrender might be the hardest thing you ever do, and also the most liberating. The symbolic death often brings profound grief. You're mourning not just external losses, but parts of yourself that must be left behind. Allow yourself to feel this grief fully. Tears clear your vision. Anger reveals your boundaries and values. Fear points toward what matters most to you. These emotions aren't obstacles to your transformation, they're essential catalysts. What makes this phase especially challenging is that you can't see what's coming to replace what's been lost. You're in the darkness of the chrysalis, the cold of winter, with no guarantee of spring. This is when faith becomes essential, not necessarily religious faith, but faith in the natural process of growth and renewal that flows through all living things, including you. Jung found that those who navigate this phase successfully develop a different relationship with uncertainty. Instead of seeing the unknown as threatening, they begin to recognize it as the source of all new possibilities. They discover that their greatest breakthroughs couldn't have been planned or predicted. They emerged from the fertile void created by letting go. Another aspect of symbolic death involves facing your shadow, the parts of yourself you've denied, rejected, or hidden. During breakdown periods, these shadow elements often surface dramatically. The qualities you judged in others suddenly appear in your own behavior. The emotions you've suppressed for years erupt unexpectedly. Rather than seeing this as further proof of failure, recognize it as integration in progress. Your psyche is working to make you whole by bringing unconscious material into consciousness. Throughout history and across cultures, humans have created rituals to mark this process of death and rebirth. Vision quests, rites of passage, baptism, meditation retreats all acknowledge that transformation requires a symbolic death of the old self before the new self can emerge. Create your own rituals to honor what's ending and open to what's beginning. Write a letter to your old life and burn it. Create art that expresses both your grief and your hope. Mark this transition consciously. Remember that in every great story, the hero must face death in some form before returning with the treasure. Your current losses aren't the end of your story there, the essential turning point that makes your comeback not just possible, but inevitable. The hero's journey. Your transformation path according to Jung. Every great comeback follows a pattern as old as humanity itself. Jung recognized this pattern in myths and stories from cultures worldwide. Kalinit, Chihiro's journey. This isn't just an entertaining plot structure, it's a map of the psychological transformation process that you're experiencing right now. The hero's journey begins with a call to adventure, often disguised as a crisis or disruption. Perhaps you've lost your job, ended a relationship, faced health challenges, or simply felt an increasing sense that something in your life isn't working anymore. This disruption isn't random bad luck, it's the first step on your path to transformation. Many people initially refuse this call. They try to maintain the status quo, fix what's broken, or return to what was comfortable. This resistance is natural but ultimately futile. The call keeps coming in different forms, growing louder until you have no choice but to answer it. Your life as you knew it is ending so that a new, more authentic life can begin. Once you accept the call, whether willingly or because circumstances leave no alternative, you cross the threshold into unknown territory. This is where you leave the familiar world behind. Old identities, relationships, beliefs, and circumstances no longer support you. You enter what Jung called the night sea journey, a period of darkness, confusion, and testing. During this phase, you encounter helpers and mentors. These might be literal people who offer guidance, or they might appear as books, ideas, or inner wisdom that emerges when you need it most. Pay attention to who and what shows up to support you now. Each helper brings a gift, a tool, insight, or quality you'll need for your journey. You also face obstacles and enemies. Some of these are external circumstances that challenge you. Others are internal, your own fears, limiting beliefs, and habitual patterns that resist change. Jung believed these obstacles aren't preventing your transformation, they're essential to it. Each challenge develops capacities within you that were dormant before. The most critical part of the journey is what mythologist Joseph Campbell, who was heavily influenced by Jung, called the ordeal. This is the dark night of the soul, the moment of greatest challenge when everything seems lost. In movies, this is where the hero faces death or ultimate defeat. In your life, It might feel like complete breakdown or failure. What makes this moment transformative is that it forces you to surrender your old ways of being. Your familiar strategies don't work anymore. Your ego, the part of you that wants to control everything, must finally admit defeat. This surrender isn't failure, it's the necessary prelude to rebirth. After the ordeal comes the treasure. In myths, this might be a magical object, special knowledge, or a rescued person. In your life, the treasure is your transformed self. You discover strengths you never knew you had. You connect with deeper values and more authentic desires. You gain wisdom that could only come through facing your greatest challenges. But the journey isn't complete until you return with this treasure to serve others. Your comeback isn't just for UIT's purpose beyond your personal growth. The insights and abilities you've gained through your transformation are meant to be shared. This might happen through your work, creative expression, relationships, or simply how you show up differently in the world. Jung observed that those who try to shortcut this process ultimately find themselves repeating it. There are no elevators to personal transformation, only stairs that must be climbed one step at a time. Each phase serves a purpose in your psychological and spiritual development. The confusion of the unknown territory develops your intuition. The obstacles build your strength and resilience. The ordeal deepens your capacity for surrender and trust. The return cultivates your generosity and purpose. What makes your current journey uniquely powerful is that you're undertaking it consciously. Most people experience the hero's journey unconsciously, fighting against it, not understanding its purpose, but you're gaining the map. You're recognizing the pattern. This awareness doesn't make the journey easy, but it makes it meaningful. Another key insight from Jung is that the hero's journey isn't a one-time event. Throughout your life, you'll experience many cycles of call, threshold, challenge, transformation, and return. Each cycle takes you deeper, developing different aspects of your potential. The breakdown you're experiencing now is preparing you for your next level of growth. As you navigate this journey, pay attention to dreams and signals. Jung found that during major life transitions, these phenomena increase dramatically. They're your unconscious mind communicating with your conscious awareness, offering guidance when your rational thinking reaches its limits. Dreams often reveal where you are in the journey and what you need to move forward. Remember that every hero in every story faces moments of doubt, fear, and the temptation to turn back. These emotions don't mean you're failing, they're normal human responses to the unknown. The hero's courage isn't about not feeling fear, it's about continuing despite the fear, trusting the process even when you can't see the outcome. Your comeback story is already unfolding. The breakdown you're experiencing isn't the end, it's the turning point that makes your transformation possible. Every hero must face darkness before discovering their light. Every phoenix must burn before rising from the ashes. Your greatest chapter hasn't been written, yet then the challenges you're facing now are preparing you to write it. The encounter with the self, discovering your true potential in times of crisis, in the midst of your greatest challenges lies an opportunity so profound that Jung considered it the ultimate purpose of human existence. The encounter with your true self. This isn't the self with a lowercase s, your personality, preferences, and the roles you play in daily life. This is the self with a capital S, the complete, whole person you were always meant to be. Most people live their entire lives identifying with only a small fraction of their total potential. They develop certain aspects of their personality while leaving others dormant or repressed. They conform to external expectations, cultural norms, and the limited vision of who they think they should be. This partial development creates an imbalance that eventually demands correction. When your life falls apart, it's often because you've been living too small. The path you were on couldn't accommodate the fullness of who you truly are. The relationships that ended couldn't support your growth. The career that collapsed wasn't allowing your genuine gifts to emerge. What feels like destruction is actually liberation, your authentic self breaking free from limitations. Jung discovered that major life crises often trigger what he called the individuation process, the journey toward psychological wholeness. During stable, comfortable periods, most people maintain the status quo. It's only when the familiar structures collapse that they are forced to discover who they really are beyond social conditioning and external definitions of success. This encounter with your true self rarely feels comfortable at first. It often begins with disorientation as the identities you've relied on fall away. Who are you if not your job title? Who are you if not someone's partner? Who are you when the roles and achievements that defined you are stripped away? These questions aren't just philosophical, they're the essential inquiries that lead to authentic being. Another challenging aspect of this encounter is facing the parts of yourself you've denied or rejected. Jung called these aspects the shadow, not because they're negative, but because they've been kept in the dark of unconsciousness. Some shadow elements might indeed be qualities you consider undesirable, ungert, selfishness, vulnerability, but others might be your greatest strengths and gifts that didn't fit the identity you were trying to maintain. During times of breakdown and breakthrough, these shadow elements often erupt into conscious awareness. The person who always prioritizes others suddenly feels rage at being taken for granted. The rational, professional experiences overwhelming emotions they can't explain. The spiritual seeker confronts their material desires. These eruptions aren't signs of regression, they're integration in progress, your psyche working to make you whole. Jung found that the encounter with the self often comes with powerful dreams and visions. You might dream of unknown rooms in a familiar house representing unexplored aspects of your psyche. You might encounter strange yet somehow familiar figures, personifications of qualities within you seeking expression. Pay special attention to dreams during this period. They're not random neural firing, they're communications from your deeper wisdom. One of the most profound aspects of this encounter is discovering that you're both smaller and larger than you thought. Smaller in that your ego, the I, that wants to control everything, is just one aspect of your total being. Larger in that you contain multitudes archetypes, potentials, and connections to the collective unconscious that transcend your individual existence. This paradox leads to a profound humility coupled with genuine confidence. Humility because you recognize how little your conscious mind actually controls. Confidence because you discover resources within you that are vastly greater than you realized. This combination, humble confidence, becomes the foundation for your comeback. The encounter with the self also transforms your relationship with meaning and purpose. Before, you might have sought purpose externally in achievements, recognition, or adhering to cultural definitions of success. Now, purpose emerges organically from within. You discover that meaning isn't something you find, but something you create through living authentically and expressing your unique gifts. Another dimension of this encounter involves recognizing that you're not just an isolated individual, but part of something larger. Jung called this the collective unconscious, the layer of the psyche we share with all humanity, containing universal patterns, and this connection doesn't diminish your uniqueness, it grounds it in something enduring and meaningful. As this encounter deepens, you may experience moments of what Jung called constellation of the self, times when you feel unusually whole, centered, and aligned with something greater than your everyday consciousness. These moments might come during nature experiences, creative flow states, meaningful connections with others, or profound stillness. They give you glimpses of the person you're becoming. What makes the encounter with the self so transformative is that it's not about becoming someone else, it's about becoming more fully yourself. The self isn't an ideal to live up to or a perfect state to achieve. It's the unique pattern of wholeness that's been within you from the beginning, waiting to unfold when the conditions are right. Those conditions are now present in your life. The very challenges that seem to be breaking you down are actually breaking you open. The losses that feel like endings are creating space for your true beginning. The questions that have no answers are invitations to deeper wisdom. What seems like your darkest hour is actually the dawn of your most authentic life. This is the ultimate paradox of your comeback. You're not returning to who you were before things fell apart. You're becoming who you were always meant to be, a person you couldn't have imagined before this transformation began. The encounter with your true self isn't just the reward for surviving your challenges, it's the very purpose they've been serving all along. The alchemy of pain, transforming suffering into personal power. Ancient alchemists spent centuries trying to transform base metals into gold. Jung recognized that this wasn't just a literal quest, it was a symbolic representation of the human potential to transform our darkest experiences into something precious and valuable. Your pain isn't just something to endure or escape, it's the raw material for your greatest transformation. The alchemical process begins with what the ancients called the nigredo blackening, or dark night of the soul. This is where you find yourself when life falls apart. Everything familiar is dissolved. What you thought was solid proves fragile. Your plans crumble, relationships end, certainties vanish. This painful dissolution feels like failure, but is actually preparation breaking down what's no longer serving you so something new can emerge. Most people try to escape this phase as quickly as possible. They numb their pain with distractions, substances, or frenetic activity. They grasp desperately for solutions, new relationships, or quick fixes to restore comfort. But Jung discovered that those who fully engage with this darkness, who feel it completely without trying to escape, unlock its transformative potential. Pain demands your complete presence. When you're suffering, you can't maintain the illusions and pretenses that previously structured your life. You're stripped down to essentials. This painful honesty creates the conditions for authentic growth that comfortable times rarely provide. The next phase of alchemy is the albedo whitening, where light begins to emerge from darkness. In your life, this appears as moments of insight amidst confusion. You start to see patterns in what previously seemed like random suffering. You recognize how certain relationships or situations that seemed safe were actually limiting your growth. You understand how beliefs you never questioned were shaping your reality in unseen ways. These insights don't immediately end your suffering, but they give it meaning, and meaning, as Jung noted, makes almost any suffering bearable. When your pain becomes a path rather than just punishment, you develop a different relationship with it. Instead of asking, "Why is this happening to me?" you begin to ask, "What is this teaching me?" This shift itself is transformative. The third alchemical phase is the this is where your suffering begins to yield its gifts. The rejection that crushed you reveals what you truly value. The failure that humiliated you frees you from the prison of perfectionism. The loss that broke your heart expands your capacity for compassion. The crisis that shattered your plans opens you to possibilities you couldn't have imagined before. These gifts don't come automatically. They emerge through reflection, integration, and the courageous choice to find meaning even in your darkest moments. Jung observed that those who transform suffering into growth maintain a dialogue between their conscious mind and the deeper wisdom of the unconscious. They ask questions, they listen for answers in dreams, creative inspirations, and intuitive knowing. They remain curious about what their pain might be revealing. The final phase of alchemy is the rubidota reddening, where all elements are unified into the philosopher's stone. In psychological terms, this is where your fragmented experiences form a coherent whole. The parts of your story that seem disconnected, successes and failures, joys and sorrows, reveal themselves as essential chapters in your unique journey. Nothing is wasted, nothing is random. Everything contributes to who you're becoming. This integration creates a particular kind of strength that can only come through suffering and transformation. It's not the brittle strength of someone who's never been broken, but the flexible, resilient strength of someone who's been shattered and reconfigured, like the Japanese art of kintsugi, where broken pottery is repaired with gold. Your healed wounds become the strongest, most beautiful parts of you. Another dimension of this alchemical process involves transforming specific painful emotions into their higher expressions. Fear, when fully experienced rather than avoided, becomes intuitive awareness, your system's innate ability to sense what needs attention. Anger, when honored rather than suppressed, becomes boundary setting power and motivation for change. Grief, when allowed to flow, becomes depth of feeling and appreciation for what truly matters. Jung found that those who successfully navigate this transformation develop what a cahier de transcendent function, the ability to hold opposing truths simultaneously. They can acknowledge both the reality of suffering and the possibility of meaning. They can feel both the pain of what's been lost and gratitude for what remains. They can recognize both their limitations and their unlimited potential. This capacity to embrace paradox creates a psychological flexibility that's essential for resilience. The ultimate power that emerges from transformed suffering is authenticity. When you've faced your darkest moments and found your way through them, you no longer need to pretend. You don't have to maintain a perfect image or live according to others' expectations. You've seen the worst that can happen and survived it. This frees you to live with a radical honesty that was impossible before your breakdown and breakthrough. This authenticity becomes magnetic. People are drawn to those who have alchemized their pain because they emanate a quality of being that can't be faked. Your transformed suffering becomes not just personal power, but the ability to help others navigate their own dark nights. Your wounds, once healed, become sources of wisdom that benefit everyone you encounter. The comeback you're creating isn't just a return to normal or a slightly improved version of your previous life. It's an alchemical transformation that changes everything: how you relate to yourself, how you connect with others, how you understand success and failure, how you handle future challenges. The gold that emerges from your current pain will illuminate every aspect of your life going forward. Remember that alchemy isn't instant. It's a process that unfolds through stages, each with its own challenges and gifts. Honor where you are in this process. If you're still in the darkness, focus on fully feeling what's present without rushing to solutions. If insights are beginning to emerge, give them space to develop. If you're seeing the gifts in your suffering, allow yourself to receive them fully. If integration is happening, trust the new wholeness that's forming within you. Your pain isn't punishment, it's initiation. Your suffering isn't meaningless, it's the raw material for your most profound transformation. Through the alchemy of conscious engagement with your darkest experiences, you're creating not just a comeback, but a rebirth into the most authentic and powerful version of yourself.